What's going on, family? How's everybody doing out there? My name is Paul Park, and I'll be your host for another episode of Coffee Call. Today, we have another brother of mine, and you guys are in for a treat because he's all the way from Hawaii, well, Kauai to be exact, and so he has graciously accepted to have this call with me. Y'all have to understand that sometimes when I take these calls, it's either same time zone or different time zone. So Kauai, I think it's 3 hours back. I problem owe him a favor, but it's all good. He's my brother. So we're gonna get him on right now. And if you are on, if you can share with your friends and family to show your love and support for what we're trying to do, which is just to continue to have conversations with different communities, diverse communities on church topics, social topics, sometimes political topics, whatever their heart is on, what their passion is about, and so we can further the kingdom of God to and further proclaim the gospel uh, in different ways. Right? I think we're living in a time where um, I always, we always hear the phrase, the message can be the same, but the method might have to be a little bit different these days. So obviously, using social media and um, continuing to just use whatever means that we have to spread the gospel. I'm all about that, and the people that I have on, that's what they're doing as well. So whether they're in um, all these different types of ministries, care ministry, music, worship, sports, nature, even, and so that's the type of people that we have on these conversations. So with no further ado, with no just time passing by, I want to invite my brother, Naphtali. I've known this brother for like 4 or 5 years, but I still don't know how to say his last name. So I'm gonna let him introduce himself. So I'm about to bring him on. Let's welcome Naphtali. Here we go. What's going on, brother? Oh, do I have to say aloha?
Aloha. Aloha.
Aloha. I love
Yeah.
it, dude. So why don't you introduce yourself, say your name, where you're from, and all that good stuff, brother? Come on.
Okay. Aloha kako, everyone. My name is Naphtali Teaupa. I'm the pastor here in West Kauai United Methodist Church in the island of Kauai in the state of Hawaii. Um, I've been, it's my first, been just finished, just basically, it's my first year as a pastor, first appointment as a full-time pastor. Uh, in Hawaii. So it's been an interesting experience, and I want to thank you, Paul, for making time and also inviting me to be part of your program and this interview.
Yeah, yeah, that's good. This is crazy. Hey, Nafit, do you have your laptop on? I think, do you have your sound on? If you can mute that, because there's a feedback. I don't know if you hear it.
Shoot, how about now?
Yeah, you're good.
Yeah.
It's all good. But you know what I do like hearing is that a rooster in the back of you?
Yes,
There are roosters.
that's the alarm clock here every morning. Is the roosters. So
That's cool, man. Yeah, so for all you guys out there, I met Nafe for the first time in seminary. So he's my colleague as well, not just my brother, but a colleague. And the first time I saw him, I don't know, but Nafe was wearing this rugby jersey. And I play rugby too. But when I saw Nafe wearing that jersey, I was like, is there a pro here today? I mean, is this a special guest coming into class? Because this guy is, I mean, he's still jacked, but man, when he wore that rugby jersey, I was like, do we have a special guest today talking about? Is there a Christian rugby player coming in and talking about the gospel? So yeah, so I know Nafit plays a little bit of rugby as well. I know he's married, right? He just got married as well. Let's talk. Why don't you talk about that?
well, so the week before I got appointed to be a pastor. I mean, the week before I got married, I got appointed to be a pastor. So that's a whole different story. But yeah, so I'm married. My wife is actually from New Zealand, but she's stayed in Australia when we met. So
Mm,
we went after high school in Tonga. She went to China for college, and then after that, she came back to New Zealand. Then she got a job in Australia, so she moved there. So I met her in Australia. So it's been a yeah. So
yeah,
yeah, she's here with me serving the Lord, and yeah, we just last in June we had our first year anniversary. So it's been an interesting journey so far. Still learning, brother. So
that's cool, man. Well,
I'm just surprised
congratulations.
about some ask for advice, man.
Yeah, for sure. Hey, man, I'm probably gonna have to ask you for advice too. And for the listeners out there that don't know, we're gonna have her on as well because her story's crazy interesting. A Tongan young lady moving to China for college, right?
Yeah.
And then serving in Kauai right now, and then being married and what it's like. So we're gonna have her on in a couple of weeks. So y'all want to check that out when that comes. But today we want to have this conversation with Nafe. So tell us what's going on a little bit in Kauai. What's the ministry like over there? What's the life? Because when people thinking about Hawaii, Kauai, Maui, we don't really think about ministry, right? We think about vacation. We think
Communication.
about I mean, look at our background, man. I want to be there right now, bro. Like and it's crazy how like some of the Tongan, I mean, yeah, so some of the Tongan people that I served with, some of the Tongan community that I served with, every time they say like we're gonna go to Hawaii, we got to go back to Hawaii for my aunt's thing, or we got to go back, I'm like, go back, can you take me please? you know
Yeah.
and so they make it sound like it's just another chore, but for me, for some people, it's like an experience of a lifetime that we might not get living in the mainland. So tell us about what ministry is like in Kauai, and some of the church experiences that you had over there growing up.
Well, so I cannot speak for all Hawaii, but I can speak for Kauai since I'm the pastor. Doing my ministry here in Kauai. What I have to say, man, Kauai is very family oriented. So a lot of the people here, this is home because they probably have um, their families were probably immigrated here to work in the sugarcane plantation, in the pineapple here in Kauai. So uh, a lot of them, the life here, it's very. I think to me, in my opinion, the time is a lot slower, and the people are very very friendly. I mean, we talked about the spirit of aloha. If you really want to experience the spirit of aloha, you should come to Kauai.
What
Come
is
to
the spirit of aloha?
spirit of aloha is it's ohana, the family. You talking about the whole, let's say the whole side, the whole city, the whole village. That is everyone there is ohana. Everybody. That's why here we call. If you see someone on the street, we don't just say, you don't just look at this person and you said, hey, or and try to come up with a name. Hey, sir, ma'am. We call them auntie or uncle. So for us, referring using that, it builds a strong, I would say, like a more family connection rather than just a person you see down the road. So yeah,
Wow. And so what is your church like? Because I know you're part of a denomination. You want to talk about that?
yeah. So my church, the West Kauai United Methodist Church, consists of is a multicultural, multi-ethnic congregation. It consists just of people from different, outside some mostly Filipino, and have some Caucasians, Japanese, and I think the only two Polynesian islanders in this congregation is my wife and I.
Mm,
So that's that. And yeah, so when I moved here, got appointed here to be the pastor, uh, it was a big transition for me because I grew up Tongan. When I say Tongan, I mean migrating here at the age of 14. I kind of just shelter myself with the Tongans because that was I always felt like home, and I did not really left that little environment, that community. Uh,
mm.
Talking about not living in comfort zone, yeah. So I didn't really get exposed to anything else. I kind of just stay in that little community with the Tongans. So having to be appointed here, definitely the culture was very different, and the language, definitely the language. So because English is my second language, so it was a big transition in terms of trying to adapt and trying to minister and to operate a church where that the context is very different from the one that I grew up with and the one that I sort of my identity was being formed at. So
Mm.
yeah,
Yeah. So talk about, growing up as so you said you immigrated to Kauai, right? Kauai at the age of
Hawaii, yeah.
14. Yeah. So talk about that a little bit. What was it like coming from, Tongan to Hawaii and, experiencing teenage years and adult years and then moving to the mainland, right? For seminary. What was that like? Because I know the conversations we have had, you've had a little bit of movement, a little transformation on identity, what it means to do ministry as a whole body in Christ. So talk about that.
Well, so yeah, so I moved there at the age of 14. It was a big change. Talking about culture shock. A lot of because back home in Tonga, everything is it's a very collectivistic society
Mm,
where everyone do things together. It's such a small. You live in these small villages where everybody know each other. Everybody hold you accountable what you do. You cannot just you know do something in the village and then you think you can get away with it. Someone somewhere in the village will catch you and then probably discipline you. And then when you go home, you don't want to tell your parents because they probably give you another discipline. So moving here, it was a huge transition for me. It was just different because I couldn't communicate. I couldn't really adapt to the culture and the people because everything was in English. So I couldn't speak English. I couldn't write in English. I couldn't read. So I moved there at the age of 14. I was in eighth grade going to high school. So my whole 4 years in high school was basically learning English, trying
wow.
to trying to even just to get the days going with communicating and interacting with people. In a intervallistic community and culture, not everyone it's you don't know everyone. You know what I mean? And for me, that was hard because definitely it was the culture is very different. I couldn't really adapt and operate and function as just a normal human being in Hawaii in a different culture because it was so new to me, especially at the young age. So
Right.
I kind of just really stay at the corner and just stick with the Tongans that were there at the school at the time.
Right. So what was it like going to, because I know we met in Claremont, and what was it like coming to seminary in the mainland and experiencing this diverse group of people, especially in a school that we went, very interreligious, interfaith. And so how was that for your faith as well?
Well, it was definitely that's a whole different experience for me, and the reason why because I've never been in an environment that diverse. You know, um, talking about Hawaii, like I said earlier, I kind of just stick with the Tongan community because it felt like home. I'm more comfortable here.
Mm,
Everybody believe the same thing. Everybody's thinking the same. And then having to move to California and to see a Steve, that really stretched everything for me. The way that I think and the way that I view the world and just people in general. I
mm,
think that was the biggest thing for me. And I think it's a good thing. It's actually a very good thing because it makes me really step out of my comfort zone and really come to the realization that not everyone think the same. Not everyone view the world the same, and not everyone with view of Christianity and religious systems, your Christian belief, they're not the same. And especially when it comes to theology, a lot of them kind of like shock me. Oh, you just believe that? So I
mm,
was like, oh man, like this is interesting. I didn't know that.
mhm.
So I had to really get off from my comfort zone and really experience something. And it was good. It was a really good experience for me. But it was also to me, it was uncomfortable in some things, especially we have like class discussion and also interacting with the people, the students.
Mm,
I hear them talking about theology. They think it's like, oh, this is how my theology is formed. This is how my belief is formed. And kind of to me, it was like, oh man, like really, people actually believe this stuff. But like I said, it teaches you to respect
Yeah.
that, and it teaches you to really, grow,
Right.
really grow in your faith. To me, it helps me, and it really make me grow in my faith and my worldview. So
That's good. Yeah, I think the biggest thing right now we're seeing, especially on lockdown, is a little bit of everybody's true heart, right? Um,
yeah,
and because right now in the world, we can't hide behind our job. We can't hide behind, not, well, I don't want to say hide, but or get busy with our job, or get busy with our friend group or even our church group. And sometimes those things can mask or don't give room to what we really feel at times, right? But
yeah,
right now, because we're not doing much, we're at home, it really is able to open us up a little bit, maybe give us some self reflection. One of the things I learned at CST was this contemplative self reflection, realizing
yeah,
who I am, searching for my soul, which I think is awesome because we see Jesus do that a lot, right? He's in a crowd and then he goes away to be with the Father. And so a lot of the times that we see those things, and I think for you, what I've really was inspired by and was humbled by was your attitude to learn, was your attitude to be open, was your attitude to just listen and look around. And I think that's what a lot of the church leaders need to start doing. Pastors need to start listening to what's going on in the world, because even though, and this is a very cliche thing to say, even though we as a body, we don't belong to the world, we're here. And as
yeah,
long as we're here until the time either Jesus comes back or we go back home, we got to deal with it. We got to deal with tension. We got to deal with challenges.
yeah,
We got to deal with racial unrest or political divide or
yeah.
family challenges. And we got to deal with all those things. And so I think what you're talking about is being open to see where people are at and going to where people are at, right?
Yeah.
Right? Whether we call that evangelism or we call that discipleship, but this term of going, and that's what Jesus says, right? Go, right? Go make disciples. So I think that's what we're going to be, and when we're allowed to, because I know we're not allowed to right now, or we
Yeah.
have to keep 6 feet away. And so when we're allowed to, so what I'm really interested in hearing from you is your perspective on this idea of doing multicultural ministry, as we call it, or multi-ethnic ministry, because I know from experience, and this is Paul's experience, my experience with Tongan communities is that they can be, and it's not just the Tongan community. It's a lot of the ethnic minority communities. We can be very insular, right? We can be very exclusive
Yeah.
at times with who we are as an ethnic community or
Yeah.
traditions and our cultures. So, and I know that your heart coming from Tonga know that, but at the same time, me having relationship with you and talking with you, your heart is to serve the whole body. So talk to me about where you were and where you're going and maybe where you want to be.
Thank you, Paul. Um, well, I mean, just going back to what you were saying, just the pandemic has really forces people and made people to have some really self reflections of really seeing what's really going on in the world. And I think, like you said, I have some friends on social media that I didn't even know they're really into the whole politics thing. Talking to them in person, it was a whole different conversation. I see them post stuff on Facebook, and I was like, oh wow, they actually really into this stuff, and they're right about it. I think um, the internet and the social media have given people that opportunity to really
Mm,
express themselves, to really express how they see the world, where the world is heading, and their political views. But yeah, to answer your question, I think, to me, in my heart, our purpose, our calling is to win hearts for Jesus Christ. And John Wesley's missions is, make disciples of Jesus Christ for the transformation of the world. And I truly believe it. And I think, I truly believe, I don't think it doesn't matter where you come from, what kind of culture you grew up in, um, yeah, what the kind of background that we have. The mission trumps everything else. The
mm,
mission is to win hearts for Jesus Christ, and that's how I look at it. And the way my view on culture and and the dishes and customs and etc. All of that serves that mission.
Mm,
And for me, um, I use that as a way to reach out to people and as a way to meet people halfway where they're at in life. And it doesn't matter where they're at in life. Meet them, use that as a way to kind of navigate yourself and then introduce Christ to them. Because when you go through the culture, traditions, and customs, I think that is when you meet people personally.
mm,
That's when because it's part of their identity. And if you can do that, um, you're in for a treat. You can really, really win their hearts. You can really, really introduce Christ to that. And to me, I've learned to be really open minded. I've learned to be open heart, have an open heart to everything around that's going on in the world because of my upbringing. As I've shared earlier, we're very sheltered in just this corner in the house. Like, okay, we all stay here. This is our community. Um, and we don't really allow yourself to get exposed to things
mhm,
outside of that little small community. So for me, having to move out and really, basically, I was forced to get out because I had to go to seminary. Really brings so many different perspectives, man. And then when I
mm,
come back home, oh, that's a whole different conversation because I will try to introduce, okay, this is actually what the rest of the world think like. This is actually what the rest of the world looks like to the Tonga community, and as a tension, man. So I felt as a person to finally leave that community outside to the outside world, I felt like I'm some kind of bridge to build the two
mm,
because I understand both world now,
right.
and it kind of it left me in a crossroad because it's hard
Mm,
and it's a tensions, but I think the goal is when you're in between, these two cultures, do well, trying to help, especially your people. I felt like you have to find confidence into tension. You
mm,
have to really, really, how you say this? You really have to really have a lot of patience and come to the understanding and the realization that what you're understanding now, you cannot offer it to your people, especially your community, just like that with a snap of
mm,
a finger. Can't do that. And that's to me, that's the biggest challenge that you navigate through that. And that's why at times when I would come to seminary, I would talk to you about it. How would you deal with this, Paul?
yeah.
And you share some few perspectives, few things with me, and I would come back and reflect on that. And I say, okay, I'm going to do this. So, yeah,
Yeah, I know we've talked a lot about how we can not only bridge but hold the tension, like you said, and move forward with the tension to serve and especially the next generation, where for them the tension can sometimes push them out of the church, right? Some of that tension can, and I know we've talked about it, and I'm trying to figure that out too. But I think I need some of that, would you call it, aloha spirit. I need some of that in my
mm,
life because the way I do it sometimes pushes people not out of the church, off the cliff.
yeah,
and so uh and so I think I might need your heart a little bit to kind of navigate through that, because there, I think there is a way. And in this time, I think where everybody's figuring it out how to, especially these times where we see a lot more this racial tension, right? In the world, or not just in the church, but in the world. But the church, we can continue to move forward, and through the gospel of Jesus, through proclaiming the gospel and living it out with one another,
mm,
we can be a model of what it means to live together. And these are the type of conversations, these are the type of the interactions that we need to see more, whether that's across whether that's behind whoever's sitting behind us in our church, to whoever's across the street from us,
mm,
to even like this, another state. And next week, and in a couple of weeks, we're going to be talking to, and you know him too. We're going to be talking to a brother that lives in Singapore, and
mm,
how he navigates this type of communities. And um, so yeah. So in the end, Nafi, I think. And so, what do you think about, or how do you think is the best way to continue to be the bridge, or especially in your context, the Tongan context, Tongan Hawaiian context? What do you do? Like if somebody came in, a Tongan brother or sister came in that only knew one type of cultural ministry. right? Only
Yeah.
knew one type of cultural church, and they come to your church and they see white people, Filipinos, and all these other people, and they're like, "Man, I never grew up with this stuff."
Yeah.
Pastor Nafe, what do I do? I don't feel comfortable here yet. How can I reconcile all this? What do you do?
Well, you know, that's very interesting because I have I actually have friends that are actually serving in the English congregations and just like me, and I would attend their church and I'll see their parents and also other uncles and aunties from the Tonga will come and attend the service. And what you just explained is just that after the service they'll come. Oh, why were you guys doing this? Why? Because the thing is, we have to understand that's all they knew. That's all they knew how to minister and do ministry. Yeah.
Mm,
Usually, how I deal with that is I invite them to an open conversation. I would invite them to open conversation and then try to explain to them in a language. When I say language, I mean in Tongan context language in a way that is still respectful because our culture is what the elder says always right.
mm,
You can go to a Tongan function and then you have all your educated uncles, educated aunties there, giving their opinions. But at the end, everybody would agree and say, okay, what would the elder say? So if the elder says this, you just have to respect it and go with it. So yeah, so what I usually do, I will invite them to an open conversation and explain to them that hey, the mission is still the same. It's just different ways of doing that. It's
mm.
just different ways of getting to accomplish that mission, which is to win hearts for Jesus Christ. And a lot of times, at least, I mean, for me, my experience, I get really um, we get into tensions, especially. I'll just say my father.
Mm.
My father is the way he looks at it is okay. This is how ministry was brought to Tonga, and this is how pretty much the ministry everywhere in the world. It's like but I respect that because that's all my father knew, and then
Right,
what it formed. That's their identity. That was their upbringing. So if that's what formed who they are. Yeah,
right. Yeah.
and I grew up that and in that upbringing as well, in that culture as well. So it formed a part of my identity. But God works in just so many ways that when I moved here, I've learned to be more open and see it, kind of just learn from both. I understand
Yeah.
this, learn the new world, the new ministry, which is the English context ministry,
Yeah.
and it's been very, very, very interesting and very good experience for me in my growth as a pastor. So
That's good, man. That's beautiful, dude. Yeah, because I think yeah, so it's like your father is a pastor in the Tongan community. My dad is a
you
pastor
told me that a
in
little
the
bit.
Korean community, right? And so that's all I grew up with. Korean hymns, tie and a suit, but especially living in America, yeah, that's how they did it in Korea, but living in America, not everybody sings Korean hymns, right? Last time I checked, but not everybody wears a tie and a suit. So, and at the same time, um, naming that a wrong way of doing ministry might be not the right way of continuing relationship with other people, other brothers and sisters in Christ.
Yeah,
Um, because obviously in the Bible we see the Apostle Paul sending letters to the different churches, and in those different churches they had a lot of different. They were all uniquely organized and fellowship, and a lot of the times, constantly, Paul is talking about we shouldn't have this division between us, right? We're all one body in Christ. We're all one people. But I do get language. I do get some of this cultural things. But like you said from the beginning of this conversation, all those things should be used for the glory. All those things should be used as a gift for the mission, for the purpose, which is
amen.
to continue to proclaim the gospel for everyone. Because in the gospel, right, in the gospel, we can see life, and the Bible talks about, we are made a new creation. We're in a new family. And so I think all those things are very useful. And don't get me wrong, I love seeing cultural expressions of
Oh, yeah.
worship, of faith. I love that stuff. Because I know we have it in Korean. And man, let me tell you something. When I first went to the church that I served before, the first time we had a joint service, and as you know, I served in a church where there was five different languages, five different communities, and the first time we had communion, uh, usually in communion, somebody plays a song or there's a piano in the background or organ as people go up and receive the blood of Christ and all that stuff. And there was no music, and I'm like, what is going on? Like, did they not pay somebody to to play the music? But then all of a sudden, our Tongan brothers and sisters started singing a hymn in like four-part harmony, and I was blown away, brother. You know what I mean? I was blown, and right then and there, I started crying. I was a pastor, but I gave my life to Christ again. There was no there was no altar call, but I gave my life to Christ again. Um, and so when from then on, I was like, this is my new this is I'm going to add this to my expression of faith. I don't know how to sing the songs, but I know that when this song hits, God is speaking to me, you know? And so a lot of the times when we talk about multicultural, multi-ethnic, a lot of the times we have to remind our brothers and sisters that we're not trying to take away, we're trying to include and
Include.
build together. But there are some things that maybe we don't need in our cultures.
Oh yeah. Oh
Yeah,
yes.
so the negative. So when those things come up, when you have those tensions, how do you navigate through that? When they're like, "No, you have to do it this way." How do you navigate through that?
Well, um, to me, the way that I navigate through that is I try to I really take the time to actually learn the protocol, sort of speaking in especially the Tongan context.
Mm,
They have different protocols of doing things, doing ministry, right? And the way that I navigate through that is I get to I ask the elders, okay, what's so important about these protocols? Why do we have to do this? And hearing it from their perspective and learning from them why they do and believe that was the only way to
mm,
do ministry helps me to find different ways of okay, to like you said, to explain to them, hey, in I understand this is where we're coming from. I understand this is how we do ministry, but in this context in America, it's different.
mm,
Some of these things people think is weird. Just put it
mm.
that way. I'm serious. Some of these things people think it's weird. And then if we want to continue doing ministry in the Tongan context in America, because the only way you do that is to pass it on to the next generation,
Right,
right?
right.
Which we had a conversation about that in seminary, where the next generations they were born and raised here.
Yeah,
They have a sense, and I have a strong opinion on this.
yeah.
They have a sense of understanding of the culture and identity of what it means to be Tongan, but they grew up here in America.
Right,
Versus if you, which is their full identity, who they are, is being formed in an American context.
right.
Their blood is Tongans. They may speak some Tongans. They grew up in a Tongan church. But if you haven't really grew up in the culture back home in the
Right.
island, then you really, really don't really understand what it truly means to be Tongan because they come
Mm,
with a different mentality,
that's
different
right.
way of thinking, and
That's right.
everything is obviously is hold. Everything is kind of formed. The fabric of the culture and everything is formed through the language. So if you don't speak Tongan fluently, I don't think you really understand it authentically.
That's good.
Yeah.
That's good, man. I know that's for sure because obviously I am Korean, but when I go back to Korea, I'm not Korean at all. I'm a foreigner, so I know exactly what you mean. And so that's a good topic that I want to kind of switch to is for the next generation. Now, as being a younger pastor yourself, a Tongan pastor yourself, and now doing it in a more, I guess, Western, right? Western ministry way. What have you seen, or what can you kind of see what's going on with the next generation, and how should the church be there to support that, or what does the church need to do support the next gen? um, we can say Tongan, but we can just say any second generation growing up. What do you think the church needs to do to support and empower leaders like yourself, leaders like me, to continue the work of God?
I think what the church um, need to do is to me, this is just my opinion, is to adapt to the new ways of
Mm,
doing ministry, which I think I've talked to you about this. How you have done. I watched how you do it. You changed up the worship service. And I remember you shared to me it's like an hour only, and you changed up the music. You changed up the way we preach the gospel. We speak them in the languages it's the people, I mean, especially the next generation would understand. And to me, I have a problem. Also, there's a problem within that for me because I'm still struggling to do that. Is how do we do that? Change all those different ways of doing ministry to the younger generation, to the next generation, but yet did not compromise the
Yeah.
true message of Jesus Christ.
Yeah.
To me, like I said earlier, I've only been here a year in full time ministry, so I'm relatively new. So I'm still learning that, and I'm hoping that I'll get more people from our generation who actually been in ministry for a long time now. They can
Yeah.
help me have a better understanding. So to me, that's I think that that's the biggest challenge, and I think yeah, that's the only thing I can come up with, bro. I think that's how can we can adapt to the new culture now. The things are now, especially with the younger generation, because obviously the given is this: traditional way of doing ministry is not working.
Mm,
That's a given. No, it's not going to work for the younger generation.
right.
In fact, I've heard um, some younger generations, some next generations in the church. They were saying, oh, this service is boring. Do we always have to sing these hymns? I hear that all the time. And
Yeah.
the thing is, I'm not going to stand an argument. They're right.
Yeah.
It's all right. That's how they see it. But to me, is how can we change that and win hearts for Jesus Christ,
Right.
and at the same time do not compromise the message,
That's
the
good.
true message of Jesus Christ. So that would be, I think, there would be a whole different conversation with you, and maybe you can help me have a better understanding.
I think one of the things that I appreciate about taking these calls is I get to see so many different types of people doing ministry and perspectives on how uh to switch up the method a little bit, but while keeping the message. And I really like what you said about changing to win hearts, right?
Yeah.
And sometimes so because sometimes the challenge is and the fear is that we don't want to change to please somebody, right?
Amen.
That's
Yeah.
not what we're trying to do. Or we're not trying to change because we're mad and we're angry and we're frustrated. No, the change needs to be, like you said, to win hearts. If it doesn't win hearts and you changed it, then the change was useless, right?
Amen.
And so that's what I'm actually thinking about right now. What would the church look like in the future post COVID with all the others? Like, because remember, I think about it like this, and this is probably a bad analogy, but I saw it in a show and I realized that it could work. You know how sometimes, like in war, so there was a town, right? If there's a town, and then when war happens, bombs and bullets, and we're gonna talk about your calling as a chaplaincy because you were in the service. Sometimes towns get ruined because of that stuff, right? What they built, and it's not the town's fault; it just happened, right? And then so all the rubble is set. People don't build like and then people don't rebuild like what it used to look like. Now they have to rebuild for what it is now or for the future, right?
Yeah.
And so I think that's what's happening to the church right now. We've been hit, things have been demolished.
Yeah.
Not physically. I mean, well, some things have been demolished physically, but spirits or the method have been demolished. And so now is the time to rebuild. How are we going to do it? This is very crucial in this point. Very crucial. The way we rebuild from now on is either it's gonna sustain, right, or it's gonna be vital, or people are gonna be like, this was useless, right? This rebuilding was useless. So I think what you said was very right, and that makes me think about while I'm doing ministry and forming a model of this new church plant under Free Life Community Church, how are we going to change to win hearts to Jesus Christ? That's that's the mission. And so for the last part of this, I want to talk about your calling to chaplaincy because you were in the service in the Navy, correct? Right? You were in the Navy, and so talk about that. What is leading you to be called in that area, in that field?
Um, So my call to military chaplaincy is my calling story, and I'm just gonna share that my
Mm,
calling story. So at a very young age, I've always thought and I've always believed that I'm called to be a pastor. You know, I'm called to be some kind of minister of the gospel. And then when my family and I migrated to America, and as you know, most immigrants, the whole purpose and the goal of moving to a different country um, is to get a better education, yeah, seek better opportunities, to have a better life for you, your family, and the family back home.
mm,
So that was the goal for me when we moved here. So you know, I'm just going to get a good education, um, take advantage of all these opportunities to get have a good, a better career. So my goal was to join the military and as a military officer, and after that become a law enforcement.
mm,
And I've always felt that, you know, as an immigrant to this country, I owe this country. I always felt the importance of giving back and serving this great country. They gave me all these opportunities. If I would have stayed back home, all of this will be just a dreams for me back home. Yeah. So yeah. So in undergrad, I joined RTC to be a military officer, and after that, become a law enforcement. And then it was during that time where I attend walk to a miss, right?
wow.
And I attend walk to a miss, and it was there where I confirmed my calling to ministry and really come to the affirmation that I am called to be a
Mm,
pastor, right? And after that, um, I left RTC and planning with the intention to go to seminary. So around that time, I was already thinking of um, which seminary that I would like to attend. And then uh, and then I had a conversation with my mentor, and he still is my mentor today. Which at that time I didn't even know he was a retired infantry officer.
wow.
So yeah, he was a retired infantry officer. He'd been, you know, he'd been there, done that. He did many deployments, and I sat down with him. We were drinking Kauai actually, and then we ended up just talking about the military, and it was there where he was talking about the impact of the chaplains when he
Mm,
was deployed, and how the chaplains would bring Christ, especially during combat where everybody's going through a lot. Everybody, you know, they just lost their brother um,
mm,
on, on the patrol. You know, family at home are missing them. There's something going on, and the chaplains were able to step in and bring some light, bring some hope to them. So we end up talking about that, and that is where I found my calling to military chaplaincy was where founded in that conversation.
mm,
And then that is when I came to the realization that my long desire to serve this country, to give back to this great country of America, was actually within my call to ministry.
wow.
So for me, the way that I look at it is a calling to chaplain, military chaplaincy is a calling within a calling, a
Yeah,
vocation within a vocation,
that's right.
because they come from the same grace. So
That's right.
that was sort of the whole, you know, my calling to military chaplaincy.
Yeah,
So now at this point, I'm just basically doing everything, all the requirements that is need for me to go in as a full-time and active duty chaplain in the Navy. So
that's right. And I remember in seminary the day that you got accepted, right?
yeah,
Uh,
I
to
got accepted. Yeah.
to chaplaincy, and then yeah, we were all celebrating with you. So that was a good day. So man, brother. So anyway, so thank you for taking this time to have this type of conversation. And you're one of my lifelong brothers that we're gonna walk with. And it's interesting. It's so crazy how just brothers in Christ that don't know each other, come from different cultures, different
Yeah.
places, can meet one time and basically just continue to walk with one another because we love Jesus, right? And I
Mhm.
think that's what's going to bring people together. And I say this time and time again: there is no programs, there is no I think there is no curriculum, there is no papers or books that can teach us how to serve one another in diverse communities, how to come together in diverse communities, accept the blood of Jesus. That's it. right?
Amen.
And that's what I've been trying to preach and yell sometimes at top of my lungs. That's what I'm so frustrated about, because I see it, you see it. If we can just get the church to see, man, there is something about doing life with somebody, going deep into the gospel and talking about, listen, Nafe, how's your soul, brother? You know what I mean? How's marriage? Let's talk about it. And we don't need to know about language or culture at that point, because pain is pain, suffering is suffering, love is love, And so having these conversations, I think, is crucial for the advancement of the kingdom and continuing to be one in one body. So, brother, so for the last time, I always like to ask people, if you had one advice to whoever you want to give advice to, whether that's the next gen. Oh, let's do this. What one advice can you give to the next gen Tongan Americans or Tongan community that are kind of in this stage of maybe challenges in the church or whatever? What's one advice that you can give them?
Well, if there's one advice I would give to them is, seek Christ first. Um, I believe that all of us have a purpose on this earth. We're all created and by God for a particular purpose. And I believe that the only way to really find that purpose and go after that, and go after that, is to really find Christ, find the Son, find the person who created you, and
Mm,
if you can find Him. You are going to see, and you are going to um, find your purpose and your calling in this world. And
mm.
that's that. I think that's the advice I can give on your interview, brother. So
That's cool, man. Well, hey, man, thanks a lot for joining me on Coffee Call, and so much blessings and prayers. And bro, as soon as this lockdown is over, I'm coming.
yeah,
I'm
come, brother,
coming.
come, man.
And this cliff that we see on the background, I'm gonna jump off of it. I'm gonna jump off this cliff, and I'm gonna pour myself into those blue waters that I see in front of me. And so I can't wait to be with you guys. Say hi to your wife, because I'm gonna see you in a couple of weeks too. So I can't wait for that.
Yeah.
But brother, thank you so much. Right? Thank you so much for this time of just taking this call. All right, guys, thank you so much for just hopping on another episode of Coffee Call. Peace,
Right.
brother.
Aloha.
Aloha.